Hi everyone, welcome back to Casual Watch Talk. Well, today we have got something of a special. We've got another Christopher Ward special because there is a new watch being released today, and I'm very kindly joined by Mike France. Mike, thank you so much for joining us.
Always a pleasure, Sam. Always a pleasure.
Well, this time I managed to get hold of the watch before. So for
Yeah,
our video viewers, you'll see all of the shots that I took of this watch. I had it for about 4 days. Very, very impressed with it. But we'll get onto that more. But before we get started, Mike, I haven't spoke to you since two big things happened. I spoke to you at the Aquitaine launch, so I want to
uh-huh.
really interested to know how that went, and then of course the new 36 millimeter versions as well, which were
Sure.
recent. But how did the after we spoke about the Aquitaine, how's the Aquitaine line gone?
Really well. I mean, biggest shock to us is how big the GMT has been, and I do think there's a bit of a renaissance of GMTs going on in the world at the moment. I don't know if you're finding that as well, Sam. But
Definitely. I mean, the Seiko had its Seiko 5 Sport, didn't they, with
yeah,
their GMT movement. I think it's definitely had a resurgence. Yeah.
yeah. So that's been astonishing for us, and we introduced a black version just after the launch, which has become an instant bestseller. The other big hit of the collection, is the bronze. Again, we think bronze is. We've been doing bronze watches, as you know, for some considerable time now, but. And there was a lot of talk over every year. Is bronze, as it reaches its peak, is it going to go into decline? If our experience is anything to go by, it just keeps building. I just think there's a growing appreciation for bronze as a metal. It's not to everybody's taste, of course, but we just continue to overperform on bronze cases. And we're very shortly introducing for the first time a all bronze bracelet. So that's coming down the line in the autumn. So yeah, bronze is good. The Aquitaine's been fantastic, and you mentioned the C63 Sealander,
Yes.
the new limited editions, the four colorways. 200 pieces each. The blue, the Lucerne blue, as we called it, the Lucerne blue sold out within the first 24 hours. The yellow is about to sell out. The green is not far behind it, and red will, I think, have sold out by the end of August. So, I mean, quite staggering. And of course, the series are the black and whites. So, really shocked us in terms of the speed of sellout. Well, but I think it's the sort of thing that we want people to be continually hungry about.
Yep.
We will be introducing at least one of those colors. You might not struggle to work out which one it is in a 39 millimeter, which we hope to launch in time for Christmas. We've been inundated, literally inundated with requests for a 39 mil in one of the colors. We're working very hard to try and get that in for Christmas. I've just had come off a meeting about it half an hour ago. And then people can anticipate new colors coming out for spring. We're in a good period at the moment. I think the team have been working, and we've introduced some really strong releases. But I also think the sort of market is, sadly in some ways, because the world is heading into recession if it isn't already there, of course. But so it's tough times out there, and I think it's going to get tougher. And I think to some extent we potentially benefit from that because of the inherent value. Any brand, we all know we're in an area that is completely discretionary. You don't need to have a watch anymore, and it's always going to be one of those discretionary spends. But I think there'll be a move towards a better value, or what are perceived as high value watch brands, certainly over the next year or 2 years. So, and we should be a net beneficiary of that time.
The 36 millimeter Sealander, the day that it launched, I joined a live stream with I think it was one that you're going to go on soon, the Tea and Tickers one, and I was amazed at how seeing the comments and also the panel on there, how it captured the imagination so much of the people that were on there. And people who've not bought Christopher Ward's before bought one of those. They were waiting for it. How did you come up with a 36? Was it feedback from the forum, or was it more you were just looking at the market itself. I'm interested to know kind of. I mean, you hinted at it at our last interview. I realised now that you were hinted at it at our last interview.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I actually watched the TNTickers podcast that you were on. So there you go. I'm familiar with that, and it was there was a very positive reaction from the panel. I think there were about 5 or 6 of you on the panel, if I'm not mistaken. Um, as was mentioned on that show, and as I would agree with, there's a general trend anyway in watches to a smaller size. This has been going on for some considerable while. It started not long after the financial crisis of 0809. Inevitably, there was a kickback against excess, and that eventually feeds itself into all manners of life, and including watches. And we've seen a gradual moving down of the sweet spot from sort of 42, maybe 5 years ago, to 39, 40. We've always actually had a 38 mil in the Trident collection. We actually considered long and hard the sweet spot for the Sealander collection, which we launched last year, as you know, and we decided 39 millimeter was going to be the launch size. We always had in mind at that point, and not long, almost coincidentally with us launching the Sealanders at 39. Of course, Rolex came out with they moved from a 39 millimeter down to a 36 millimeter in one fell swoop, back to 36 millimeter, and therefore that sort of reinforced in our mind's eye that moving the sweet spot back to 39 was right, but also that they would influence the market big style in terms of what size people would be prepared to move towards. Then on top of that, you've got what I call the Harry Styles effect, which is there's definitely a growing fluidity going on in the world around us, agender, which we've been since 2010, by the way. I'm not suggesting we're the leaders of agender in the world, but it was a trend when we ditched women's watches, or describing them as women's watches. We did it. We were one of the first to do it. It was only as an IWC, I think, that did it at the time. So this fluidity, who wears what, why you can wear anything, you can be anything. We just think this is part of a long-term trend, and so 36 millimeter, we thought had a reasonable chance of success. And we introduced the 4 colorways. Color is another major trend, as you will know better than I, even in watches at the moment. We'd seen it with Rolex, we'd seen it with the Aquaterra collection, we'd seen it with Sin. We thought that there was likely going to be a possibility of multiple purchases of the 36 millimeter, and it would appeal equally to male and female. Sure enough, we've had a huge increase in female purchases, and we've had many people buying all 4 colors. Quite surprising, and to sell out as fast as we have done is as I say, was a shock. It is the fastest unit sales we've ever had of a launch.
I know quite a few people who bought it as well, and I've edited over images that were kindly sent in. So here you can see some Christopher Ward owners with their Instagram accounts at the bottom.
Great,
so
great.
Big shout out to all of them. You were definitely following the trend of the market, weren't you? Because Rolex originally did it with their OP, and then you're right, Zin and Oris and Omega. I think that they're all over $1,000, even the Oris, and etc.
And the package was even better. I mean, we wanted to have a self-colored strap that was available for each of the colors, and we threw that into the package. So if you bought a bracelet or a vintage oak, we'd automatically give you free of charge the self-colored. The value is astonishing.
Well, let's get on to the new watch. And as I mentioned before, I was lucky enough to get my hands on a prototype of this watch for a couple of days, actually, before this launch today. And I'm overlaying some of the images now that I managed to take of the watch. And it's the new C60 Trident Pro 300. I think this watch is an absolute triumph, honestly. Not that I've got a strong opinion on it, but I have that I have my very much loved Trident C60 on my wrist, and there's improvements in this watch that I didn't know needed improving, which I suppose is part of the art. Everything about this watch is is an improvement on a watch that I just recently reviewed that I said probably didn't have that much room for improvement. But I think starting off, I know you've mentioned about the Rolex bezel before, and I feel like this is the closest that I've ever seen. Not only a Christopher Ward get, but any watch get. Well, first of all, tell us about the launch, and then we'll go into some of the details as well.
But sure, I mean, I might want you to do it. You'll do it. You don't need me. The story of the watch is an interesting one. It goes back to about May or June of 2020. So we're in the teeth of the pandemic, and we were we were planning to, in May 23, we were going to launch Trident 4, the life cycle of Trident, the T3, you're very familiar with, third iteration of Trident, 5 years down the line, T4. And we embarked on that project. I'll tell you why it's been pushed out here in a second. But and as part of the project, we're very fortunate to have a really lively forum at Christopher Ward, independent, and they're a brilliant brilliant sounding board for us in all sorts of ways. But when we got to thinking about the Trident 4, we obviously had our own thoughts on where we would take the new Trident. But we thought, why don't we ask the forum for their insights and their requirements? What would make the perfect dive watch for them? And we had the most amazing response. It was all coordinated by Kit McEwen, who lives in the States, who is the senior moderator of the forum. It was all brought together by him, and a presentation was made to us. And essentially, there were 4 big things that they wanted in a Trident. Yeah. And if I list them, they wanted a slimmer Trident. Yeah.
Yep.
They wanted more lume. Everybody always wants more lume.
Turn it up to 11.
No surprises there. They wanted more lume. They wanted an exhibition case back.
Yeah, that is one of the interesting bits, isn't it? Because that's the first time on the Trident, isn't it? Because mine has that closed case back with the sort of iconic Trident symbol on the back.
Yeah, exactly. And which is great. I mean, that deep stamp, I love that deep stamp. But they were very, very strong on wanting an exhibition case back. And then the 4th thing was they wanted us to move to screws in the bracelet. Yeah. Away from pins. So we've delivered on all 4 fronts. I'll talk about the aesthetic changes that we've made, because there was also a big clamour. This is before we announced moving to it. There was a big clamour to go twin flags only that came out of this research. We'd already committed to that. The story behind that. Yep. But it was very reinforcing for us to have them come back and say that, because we knew that we were about to launch the twin flags only. So this is in many ways about listening to your customers and listening to your fans. There's an old story I always find very interesting about Nike back in the day, when they decided to send their new product development team into the basketball courts of the Bronx. That led ultimately to the sort of the revamping completely of their of many of their sneakers, and it's where the Air Jordans were born and all of that sort of stuff. And apocryphal story, I'm sure, based around Nike. But we've always listened to our customers, and we've got this great advantage of this huge independent Christopher Ward forum that's been there now for 17 years, thousands and thousands of members, many with a very strong point of view, and not slow in letting you know it. So this was the consolidation of what they thought would be in their ideal Trident. So slimmer. We've taken up to nearly 2 millimeters off the height in the 300. We're able to do that because what they were clear about, and what we wanted to test the water on, forgive the pun, is the only way to do that was to bring down the water resistance from 600 to 300. So I'm afraid we're now we're only at Seamaster's level of 300 meters.
I know all those there's people that go in deep or below 600 meters.
Yeah. We felt that was the right trade-off, to go to 300 and to get this sort of I think in the 42 millimeter, it's gone from 13.4 mil high to 11 and a half. And in the 38 mil, it's now down to 11 millimeters. So this is a really wearable Trident. This slips under your cuff, no problem whatsoever.
The thinness of this watch was the striking thing for me. The way that it wears on the wrist. I actually took a picture of it next to my Rolex Datejust, which is a thin wearable profile, and they're very similar profiles in terms of their thickness, and that's the thing that strikes you the most when you put it on. That's different than it
Yeah,
really it hugs the wrist, and it's not that the previous one didn't, because I wear this all the time, and this hugs the wrist because of the light catcher case, but that that was one of the things that struck me. It was like, oh, this is thinner, but I never would have had thinness as an improvement, but it definitely is a step up from the previous version.
yeah, I mean, absolutely. And it's, 15% is, as you know, in watch terms, it's not a
No.
small amount to reduce the high price. So that we delivered on, and I think it's a step forward, certainly for the entry level. More loom. What we did as part of the design aesthetic, but thinking about more loom, we use GLX1. I mean, use the best quality loom there is. The only way we can enhance loom is by putting more of it in. So the design team have created slightly larger indexes, slightly greater depth, so we've got more loom. So we've got about anything between 15 and 20% more luminosity in the watch, which pleases everybody because everybody, as I say, likes more loom. We've put in the exhibition case back, and it's an interesting one because they were very. It was this was a big request, and we went. Many people think you can't have an exhibition case back because in a dive watch because it'll explode. Well, that's not true. Sapphire crystal is more than adequate. If it were true, all dive watches with a sapphire crystal on the top of the dial would explode, wouldn't they?
And the Pro Prof, the Omega Pro Prof, that's their deep sea version. There's a display case back version.
Yeah. So it debunks that myth to some extent. But what it was is people have a fascination, and we've managed to bring the price down by £100 at entry level on this watch. Again, you're just using our normal formula. If you're using less metal, which we are, when you take that height out, then the price comes down. So we have a simple formula. So we apply the formula. It means that the entry level price point is £100 less than the 600.
I think you're the only watch company owner that would say that. Normally it would be, oh well, we've refined the case more because we've reduced the size, but we've refined it more, so therefore the price goes up. Whereas I've never heard anyone say that there's. It's just an interesting perspective on it, isn't it? That there's actually less metal
Well,
than.
yeah, I
than
mean, it costs us less, therefore it costs you less. I mean, it's not a difficult formula for us. A lower entry price point for getting into Tridents is really important right at this moment in time. So I think people will notice the difference in price. But the point I was making about the exhibition case back, nothing to do with price. In fact, it's slightly more expensive to put the sapphire crystal case back in than it is to do a deep stamped closed case back. Yeah,
Hmm.
marginal. We're talking a maximum a Swiss franc and a half. Yeah, but the issue was these are often the entry point for many people into mechanical watches, and you'd be surprised how many people when they enter into the mechanical watch market aren't even aware of what a mechanical movement is.
Yeah, we've talked about it before. Yeah, we talked about
Yeah,
it before on a podcast.
and to see it is an absolute fascination for them. And so we've done it quite frequently on a number of new launches, and it seems to work. So that was an obvious one for us to do. And the fourth thing was the improved bracelet. We'd already, and there's an interesting secondary story to this. We'd already with the Aquitaine introduced for the first time the screwed links. Yeah, but they were screws both sides. Quite difficult to do it yourself. We resisted changing from links to screws because there is, I mean, apart from a perception of quality, yeah, there is no difference. Yeah, there's no different in cost. There's no different anything else. Yeah, and what we didn't want people to do, we didn't want people to be encouraged to get their screwdriver out and scratch their bracelets. However, the clamour was so great that we said, no, we're going to do it. And we introduced it into the Aquitaine. However, kept working with our bracelet manufacturer, who was very, very resistant to going to pin and one side screw. Yeah. So this makes it very much easier to change the links because you've only got to worry about screwing one link side. Rolex are the only other brand we're aware of that does this. And actually Tudor, although Tudors, they'll probably hate me for saying this, aren't as high quality as the Rolex ones. We've checked them out. Their tolerances aren't as great. They do have the same mechanism. So with the Rolex, you are unscrewing just one side. It makes it very much easier for you and I to change our links. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Our manufacturer resisted doing this because the tolerances that you have to work to do that are tiny, and he didn't think he could achieve the tolerances, and now he has. So we've now introduced for the first time the version 2 of our screwed bracelet. The tolerances that we're working to here are 3 microns. Yeah. So 0.03 tolerance on that, on the screwed links. Really, that's a third as thick as a human hair.
Wow.
When you see our new bracelet, the thing that separates Rolex often from the herd, in my humble view, is their tolerances are tiny. Yeah. And so you get this absolutely flush view of the screw heads against the side of the bracelet. We have achieved that. And I'm as proud of that as any other aspect of this watch. It'll probably be missed by most people, but it just demonstrates how the design team, the engineering team, working in tandem with our manufacturer, who I have to take my hat off to, he kept working and working at it. And the reason he was concerned is he could reach that tolerance, but he was concerned he'd have so many rejections that the cost would be inordinate to him. Yeah. And he's worked and worked with us so that he hasn't got a high rejection rate. So we've now down to 0.03 tolerance. And it's fantastic. Other aspects of the bracelet as well that we've improved quick release mechanism. It's even easier now to swap out.
Yeah, very easy.
You'll have hopefully, well, it's great that you spotted that. It's an improved mechanism. We were one of the pioneers of quick release, as you know, and certainly quick release in bracelets. And we've improved that further. And we've added 2 millimeters to the micro adjustment. So it's now 10 millimeters versus 8, as it was previously. We wanted to get to 12. We couldn't get there. We're not there yet. But 10 millimeters is a nice, future improvements hopefully will get us to 12 millimeters, but it's a really impressive movement from 8. And then it's in this new 16 down to a 16.5 mil taper. So it's slightly more elegant and it's slightly better taper than so the bracelet is one of the great heroes of the new Trident. And that's quite important because around about 60 to 70% of Tridents are bought on bracelets. So the bracelet is a core feature of the Trident collection. And to get the best bracelet we could get right now is I think what we've achieved. That we couldn't give our customers a better quality bracelet right now. We will in the future, I hope, because we hope to continually improve things. But we couldn't do it better today than this bracelet. I'm really proud of it. So they were the 4 big things, and we've delivered on them. Then you've got the aesthetics, and the most obvious change, as you've already identified, is the insert. Stainless steel insert into the bezel, which gives it a kind of an elegance, I think. Yeah.
Before we go on to that, because the bezel was another standout thing for me, you also changed the second hand, so we've lost the lollipop.
Great spot.
And now we've gone to an arrow. So what was that feedback from the forum as well? Because I never.
No, that wasn't. In fairness to them, it's just the development of our handwriting. So you'll know from other launches like the Aquitaine, like the Sealand, that we've moved to the arrowhead. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we wanted to move to the arrowhead on the second hand on Trident as part of that evolution of our design handwriting. I'm really pleased you spotted that. Not everybody will.
It follows the design language of the blue version follows the design language of the concept piece, doesn't it? With the orange.
Yeah, and that, as you know, was an informant of where we're taking Trident. So yeah, that is one of the key for us anyway. One of the key aesthetic changes, as is the Twin Flags logo at 12 o'clock, which we've spoken about. I'm very pleased. So we're introducing gradually the Aquitaine first main collection to carry that. We're now introducing on a piecemeal basis the Twin Flags logo. Where we've done it so far, we're seeing anything between a 25% and 100% step up in sales.
Wow.
And I know from the podcast that you were on that I was listening to that you mentioned earlier, there was some discussion about an applied index. I'm pleased to say it's not been as easy a development. We of course wanted to have an applied index to begin with, but actually the Twin Flags logo, the flag itself, not a problem. But then you've got four small, all of those squares that represent the second flag, the Swiss flag. They all require feet to be embedded into to go into the dial. Really complex, difficult thing to do at that scale. Again, the team have worked at it, and in the very early part of 23, we'll be launching a new collection, and that will be the first to carry the applied index. So that's very exciting as well. The 6 o'clock date window, which is now becoming another signature of ours, balancing with the Trident, is incorporated here. And you've spotted the stole my thunder a little bit. Thank you. You've spotted the second hand change out, and also the bezel. So I think it's well, I like to think it's a really sort of cohesive, relevant design move, tied in with all of these other changes, the slimness, the loom, the exhibition case back, the improved bracelet, and all at £100 less at entry level. Hopefully we've got a winner.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've missed, I think, one of the most interesting things as well is you did such a good job of that blue, but the green that I got sent, this is your first green Trident, because the green is awesome.
Trident. Yeah, no, I'd be very interesting to see how that goes. And as with that, as always, I think if this is the success we hope, then I think color will be another element we'll play in here. I think we can be more adventurous with this going forward. But the colors at introduction, the black, white, the blue, and the green, they are classic colors now. We're very optimistic, but as always, until the customer speaks, don't know. But we're hopeful.
Before we get onto the bezel, which we have to talk about, the only thing that I noticed different than the Aquitaine line was that you haven't come straight out the gates with a bronze or like a COSC certified one.
Not yet. Yeah, not yet.
Well, let's get to the bit that I didn't know. I think I joked on my when I reviewed my own watch, the C60. I joked that we always talk about how you're trying to get to Rolex standard of the bezel mechanism, and I said that this one is good, but it's not quite there yet. But this is a real step up, and I don't understand how you did it, because the bezel is thinner because it has that additional surround, which, like you said, makes it really pop. But you must have completely changed the bezel mechanism.
No. What all this is small incremental improvements all the time. And we introduced the big change in terms of the mechanism in 2019 with T3. And we've continued to work, as has the manufacturer, on refining. So, you don't just, as you'll be the same in your line of work as well, Sam. Yes, you do something really well, but then the challenge is always to keep improving, keep improving. And they've just got more and more expert at manufacturing and then assembling this bezel. So it's reaching, standards, very, very high standards now. But it's still, I think we can still improve it further. And when we go to T4, which will now be May 24, probably. One of the things we will deconstruct and then reconstruct will be the bezel. Can we have another leap forward in terms of bezel and bezel mechanism? So that will be one of the deconstructions that we'll do to see if we can move T4 even further. Because what's the point of? I mean, one of the key things that came out of the work we did with Forum and their dialogue with us on T4 was how brilliant T3 is. I mean, what are you even thinking about changing? It's fantastic. And then when you got into it, it was, I would like a slimmer one, and exhibition case back, and can you improve the bracelet? So it's just this continual improvement that is, I think, what all watch brands do, I'm sure, but is embedded into the guys here as to the way they approach life.
Yeah, the bezel was a real standout, and the other thing, not only is it smoother, but it's rock solid. There's no play in it. I'm showing some footage of it now. I'm struggling. I feel like I need to be objective and beat you up about something to do with it, but I'm struggling because
don't feel obliged to do that.
No. Well, the
Keep
thing
blowing
is,
the smoke. Keep blowing the smoke.
Yeah. Well, what amazed me about it was that there was some things that were like the screw-in bracelet links. You could have probably predicted that, but there was things that are improved in this that I didn't know needed improving, which I suppose is part of the art of it. But yeah, I was really impressed.
The look of it, to be honest, or the look of it. I mean, some of these things can turn out to be happy accidents.
Yeah.
I do believe that. I mean, I don't think everything is necessarily designed to the nth degree the way you think it's going to turn out. Some things turn out better, and that's than you ever thought they were going to do. And this watch, I have to say, we codenamed it Trident 3.1 in whilst it was being developed. I do think it's a much bigger leap forward than 0.1.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, and T4 will be different again, but I do think this is, if it works the way we hope it works, and we're not very far away now from finding out, if it works the way we hope it works, I think Trident 4 will be more of an architectural change in ranging. I think we may have a look here that will move maybe quite closely into T4, but I think the collection itself will be transformed in ways that people will be surprised at. That's in my head at the moment, but I think the 300 is such a big move on aesthetically, and also in some ways in an engineering sense, that it's going to be hard within the 2-year span to come up with a completely new T4. But then we'll see.
When I reviewed my own watch, I think the Trident is, I called it quintessentially Christopher Ward, because it's your own unique design. And I mean, they're all unique designs now, but some of them pay respects to other watches, whereas this one is totally unique. So the watch that I've been showing as we've been talking, this is the 42mm version, and my wrist is about 7.2 inches for people that are watching. But you're also making it available in a 38 and a 40.
Indeed.
So you've actually got the 3 choices there as well.
And the lug to lug, I think, just over 49 on the one you had, Simon. And it seemed to sit very nicely on your wrist.
Yeah, very nicely. I've showed some images of it next to the Rolex Datejust that I have, which is 41mm, and they both wear very similar.
Yeah.
Well, before we finish here, I can't leave without talking to you about our friends at Scottish Watches and their very unique Sealander that I know.
The Highlander, the C63 Highlander.
Yeah, so I actually there's a gentleman at work that I know that bought one of these based on a conversation that we were having at work, and there's also somebody who reached out to me on Facebook who's going to be holidaying in Orlando where I live, who wants to bring the watch to show me. So very
Fantastic.
very grateful for. And I said to him, please, this is like a family vacation. As much as I'd like to see it, make sure that you're hitting all of the family, making sure that the family's
Right.
happy first. But well, first of all, not only like how did that come about, but you actually changed the logo to have the Scottish symbol on
Yeah.
as well. So where did that all? How did it come from? And I presume it sold. They had 69 of them, and I
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
imagine that there's
gone.
any left.
I think as far as I'm aware, they're all gone. But um, we go back a while with Scottish watches. I think Ricky he turned up unannounced at one of our CW get-togethers in Edinburgh.
Oh yeah.
Didn't have an invitation, and he only just started Scottish watches. And we of course said, yeah, come in. You don't need an invitation. Come in. And I think he had about 3 followers at the time. We gave him an interview, and as you know, they're great fun. They're very very
Really, yeah.
knowledgeable. They take watches very seriously, but they do it with a smile on their face, and they're not in any way pompous. So they fit like a glove with our brand. And so we've always had a great relationship with them. And they were aware that we were doing collaborations with a few other people. We've done a really successful collaboration with Worn and Wound.
Yeah.
We've got others, maybe a collaboration with you at some stage. It strikes me.
Yeah.
Um, but and they said, would we be interested in doing a collaboration with them? We said yes. So we entered into a genuine design collaboration, and it wasn't difficult to pick on the Sealander as the case. So it was a C63, and we wanted it, and they wanted it to really represent Scottish watches, which meant that the saltire had to be used, and the saltire is used both in lots of different ways, including, as you pointed out, we changed the twin flag logo so that the first element of it is the saltire. I mean, and I just think it's a lovely sort of and that was a something we would I think actually we came up with that suggestion. They may have been a bit embarrassed. They may have been a bit frightened to even suggest we mess with the logo, but it's all part of if you're collaborating with people that you get on with and there is a synergy, then you end up doing things that you wouldn't normally perhaps think of doing. And they were brilliant in the process. We managed to get a separate one for the charity, which is I don't know if it's yet been auctioned, but was due to be auctioned off. And so, a really really enjoyable collaboration, and one which I'm sure at some point we'll return to with them. But yeah, I mean, I'm always interested in talking to like-minded people about collaborations, and we've got a few in the pipeline at the moment that will be released further down the line. I think it's been announced somewhere, but we're doing a Chris Ward and Fears joint forces to create a watch where all of the profits will go to the alliance.
Oh, I didn't know that. No.
Yeah, yeah, and this is going to knock people. This is a knockout watch. So Nicholas and I and our teams have worked on bringing this to fruition. That will be sometime in the autumn. People will see it. It's a very limited run of 50 pieces only. It'll retail at around the £3,000 mark. It is an absolute gem of a watch. And as I say, Nicholas and Fears and Chris Ward won't be making any profit. All of the profits will go to funding the alliance, of which Nicholas is a founding member as well. So yeah, we're always looking at interesting collaborations, and they just need to pique our interest and our imagination, and off we go.
If Ricky and Dave are watching this, a big thanks to them. They're very generous with their time for smaller creators behind the
Brilliant.
scenes. They are like they are on their podcast behind the scenes as well. So yeah,
Exactly. There's no side to them at all, and that's why we love working with them. So they're great guys and well done. I think they're also not very far behind people like Hodinkee now. I think they're they're pretty. Their numbers are pretty impressive,
Yeah, I think they might only be second only to the Hodinky podcast.
which is astonishing. So power to their elbow, I say, and all such podcasters.
Exactly. Mike, thanks so much for joining us. That was really interesting. And guys, go over to the Christopher Ward website. Those watches are now live as of now. So thanks for joining us, Mike.
Thanks, Sam. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks for watching and listening, and we'll see you next time on Casual Watch Talk. Thanks, guys. Bye.